If there was any movie that shows how complex of a character Deathstroke is, it is Knights and Dragons. What's up, YouTubers of the world? MegaGeekMixer here, ready to give you guys my review on Deathstroke's Knights and Dragons. And man, guys, what a movie this was. I'm just telling you, Deathstroke has always been known as a very complex, complicated character, and this movie definitely defines exactly that, because I have never seen a movie really go into depth about Deathstroke like this one was. I mean, maybe we could say with the comics back in Judas Contract when we finally learned of his origin, which is pretty much basically the same here, with a few slight changes here and there between him and his wife Addie and his son Joseph. By the way, Grant's not in this one, unfortunately, but Joseph and Rose are, which makes sense, and they're more well known and defined compared to Grant Wilson, who died not so long ago, and he hasn't really come back ever since then. I mean, wait, I think he did come back in New 52, did he? I don't remember. Either way you look at it though, when it comes to this movie and the complex character of who Deathstroke is, your mind just can be going wild. You're just like, I can't take it anymore. Deathstroke, what is up with you? I can't figure you out. At least that's what I would like to think. As someone who has not been ever a part of the army or any military form whatsoever, it's complicated for me to understand the guy fully. But it still doesn't change the fact how much I love this guy, because it showed here in this film that, for one, he does something that I haven't really seen him really confess too much about, and that's in the fact and how he confesses the sins of what he's done to his family. Because as you know, he's made some really weird choices that have affected his family greatly, such as in the fact that, yeah, just like in the original, Joseph's throat is slit, this time by Hive. Now, when it comes to Joseph and him getting his powers and him being a mute, it's always been through different types of people. And this one, it's Hive, who is the main antagonist, but I'm going to get to them here in a minute. We're talking about Deathstroke here, and the complex character that he is, showing that, yes, he loves his family, but he can't seem to stop lying to them or wanting to be a soldier, which it really defines here. It seems that, like, as he told Addie later on in films when she confronted him about him lying and how it cost them their family, cost them their son, with him losing his voice box and everything, he told her that he's been an army person his whole life. Army's all he really knows, which explains why he also went with the experiment that the army did to him. And even Addie was like saying, I understand you and I love that you serve your country. I've served my country too. But the thing is with her, she found her limitations thinking she's done enough. With Deathstroke, he just feels like he doesn't do enough. And I also love in the fact that the title Knights and Dragons definitely shows in this film here, because it shows through a book that he always used to read to Joseph, Knights and Dragons too, and he's talking about how dragons are always destroying the world. Well, that's kind of how Deathstroke sees himself, why he's a mercenary and stuff, or at least the delusional side of him that wants to believe he's a knight when he's a mercenary, killing people. He says he does it to protect all these innocent children and women who suffer over the rules of other people within the world. That the corruption is just like the dragons, and he's trying to be the lone knight to protect those people, and not to mention look like a knight to his son. And while I do understand he says he's trying to do this for his son, you can also notice that he's just very delusional in it. And that is very sad, to say the least of it. And in the fact that he just couldn't find a way to settle in. Like, and a soldier's all he's been. That's what his family's always been about. And he just wants to seem like wants to stay a soldier until he dies. He doesn't want to settle in at all, which is kind of sad. At least that's just what I'm trying to get out of this. But even still, it doesn't change the fact on how much I love his character and why he's been such a complex character from the very day he was brought into this world to when he started having some of his own solo comic series. But for this one being one of his very own or better yet, probably his very first, if I'm not mistaken, own film that's all about him and his family. It done great job showing the complex relationship of not just him and his wife, but his weird love for his children, such being Jericho and Rose. Yes, guys, Rose is in this film. Lillian made a small cameo appearance. She didn't really have much of a role in it, other than the fact that yes, he met her in Cambodia. He slept with her, but then he left her and she raised Rose on her own. And yeah, she did die differently, and Rose had to still ended up being on her own. And yeah, Teen Titans don't play a role in this, and thank God for that, because this is all about Deathstroke and his family, and it really defined exactly the dysfunctional family they are. And speaking of family, that's what this theme is all about, guys. Family. And it's done with both Deathstroke, his kids, his ex-wife, and the main antagonist, Jackel. And I'll get to him here in a minute. Jackel and Hive being the main antagonists of this film, they had some very interesting roles going into it. But before I get into that, let me also discuss in the fact that the animation, first off, if I'm not mistaken, same animation that was used in Mortal Kombat Scorpion's Revenge. And no problem with that whatsoever. And in the fact that this movie was very violent to the same degree as Scorpion's Revenge. A little less, but still violent nonetheless. Or who am I kidding? Maybe it wasn't. I think it's safe to say that it was the same degree of violence. But either way you look at it, you could tell the art style was pretty much the same there, but also in the fact that with not only just the animation and the art style of it, but also the animation with the action scenes we get from it, it showed very different styles of animation with the different action scenes we got here. I mean, we got, of course, your usual protagonist, antagonist final showdown, and we had that somewhat at the beginning as well, and we also saw it with Addie being able to take on the main antagonist herself. Sure, not winning and stuff, but it showed that she's not to be messed around with. Which is no surprise. Don't forget why Deathstroke married her. She's just as much of a badass as he is. But moving straight on, there's also the fighting style of Deathstroke fighting Hive soldiers underwater with sharks getting involved. And then, of course, him and Addie fighting Hive soldiers in the sky during the final battle. And let's not forget Wintergreen, who does have a few roles in this one and shows why he is always by Deathstroke's side, or for that matter, the family's side for that matter. Always by them. And my God, props to the guy, because a family like that, you gotta wonder how anyone can be able to be around a family like that, that's for sure. But also Wintergreen has some time to shine in the final battle when there's that airplane battle between him and Hive soldiers. What a great movie it was in that aspects. Now that I've said all that, we got to go back into the theme of the family and the characters involved in it. That being Addie, Rose, Joseph, and Jackel, the main antagonists. Yeah, Jackel has a thing to do with family in this too, because he was involved in Deathstroke's family. As we all know, Deathstroke, when he lied to his family saying he's doing hunting or business stuff, he's actually a mercenary undercover, and he does so many jobs that eventually he gets off on the wrong people. That's where Jackel came in and took out his wife and kidnapped his son, to where eventually Joseph got his throat slit. And yes, even though Joseph gets his throat slit, yes, he does have powers in this film. They're just different. Instead, they're more psychic powers, not jumping into people, but controlling their minds and everything. And I'll get more into that here too, because it turns out those powers, along with Rose, have a big role in this film. But still, Jackel here first started off as just an agent of Hive, but then became its leader, because we have a 10-year later time skip in this film, and he shows to be an undercover agent and has a new leader in charge, that being the Hive Queen, which we later on find out is actually Rose, because Jackel found Rose when she was learning to survive on her own since she lost her mother, and had been manipulating the girl to become his new Hive, but also somewhat trying to say he looked at her like a daughter. But oh no, that wasn't the case there, as he soon found out when he executed his plan. And that plan was for them capturing Jericho and trying to use his powers to take over the world by taking over the minds of so many of all world leaders and making it into their own world. Because as we all know, Hive is a terrorist organization, and they did not shy away from showing how dangerous of a terrorist organization they were. I mean, let's face it, Jackel taking Deathstroke's daughter, who he at first didn't know about until he went to go save Joseph from Hive when he was trying to face the Hive Queen, and found out that, yeah, Joseph had reveals to him that Rose is his sister and Deathstroke's daughter, because, yeah, when he goes to rescue him, he found out that no, he wasn't rescuing him, he was being lured into a trap, and Rose and Joseph have been working together to not just get revenge on their father, but revenge on Jackel, because that's, like I said, Jackel's the reason for Joseph's throats being slit, and they were showing that. And it really showed here that even though Joseph and Rose didn't know of each other's existence at first, but later on came to know each other's existence through Joseph's powers, you can see the very loving brother-sister relationship they have there. Sure, even though eventually Rose admits that she was manipulating Joseph, it was only to a little degree. Sure, it's still manipulating, but she still truly loved her brother. Because if she didn't, she wouldn't have helped him overthrow Jackel and stop him from taking over the world. But it's really during the final battle where it really can show us here that even though they're a dysfunctional family, and Deathstroke with his mind is sort of maybe a sociopath, I guess you could say that. I don't know, that might be a strong word, but it's just me pretty much saying that since you really don't know what to think of him and how his mindset is when he's talking through Addie throughout this entire film, who's, by the way, guys, their relationship just makes me crack my head open saying like, God, how can Joseph and Rose stand to have parents like these? It's nuts, I tell you. But they do somehow, and I do give them props off to that. But I think what I loved here more was the protagonist versus antagonist, because that's what really brings the film together here. And that's what was really shown to us here. As Jackel and Deathstroke, you can see they're already bad blood with each other at the beginning of the film. It's still in a more business standpoint, but then going straighter into the film, you see how bad blood it got. Because like I said, Jackel involved his family, and here Deathstroke's just trying to save his family from Jackel. And yeah, eventually though, it really can come into it during the final confrontation when these two are battling each other, to where it kind of shows here that they are both mercenaries or killers in a sense, or monsters in a sense. But it can show some differentiation here, sort of, but they're still similar nonetheless. Because let's face it, Jackel did all this because he wanted revenge on Deathstroke for what Deathstroke did to his daughter, who he killed at the beginning of the film. Oh my God. I really could not explain how well this movie did with the theme of family. A dysfunctional, whacked out family maybe, but it was beautifully done. I loved it. I love the complex relationship of husband and wife between Deathstroke and Addie, the brother-sister relationship here between Joseph and Rose, and then, of course, the protagonist and antagonist relationship between Deathstroke and Jackel. Beautifully done. I could not be more proud of this DC film here, and I would like to hope they'll make more DC films regarding characters like these. Not just them, but also like maybe Lady Shiva, who played a role in this film, but not as big of a role. Because I really would like to see Cassandra Cain have her own film, or at least a film where she's Batgirl, Orphan, anything like that. Basically, let's try to expand some more of these characters, have their own solo movies, just so they can be more established out there. Kind of like what we've been doing with Black Lightning and stuff. But either way, guys, love this film. Great movie. I give it an 8.5 out of 10. But until then, guys, let's leave it all at that. And if you're enjoying my videos, all you gotta do is click that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon to be notified when I make more videos. And until then, MegaGeekMixer signing out. Bye!